A few days back, Zhang Heqing, cultural counsellor at the Embassy of the People's Republic of China to Pakistan, literally gave the middle finger to countries that he described as China's enemies. Oh, how rude. Welcome to Beyond the News. I'm Faye. The way we treat our friends and the way we deal with the enemies, Zhang wrote in a tweet that displayed two juxtaposed images. One showed a thumbs up and the other middle finger. Quote, treat friends trustworthy, lovable, and respectable. Treat enemies, we are wolf warriors. End quote. The Chinese text reads, wolf warriors is a term popularized by Western media to describe the PRC's increasingly aggressive foreign policy. As Peter Martin, political reporter for Bloomberg News, explained in his book, China's Civilian Army, The Making of Wolf Warrior Diplomacy. Quote, the foreign media began to brand this new confrontational approach wolf warrior diplomacy after a series of Chinese action movies, the so-called wolf warrior that depicted Rambo-like heroes battling China's enemies at home and abroad. Their second in the series, Wolf Warrior 2, told the story of a group of People's Liberation Army soldiers sent to rescue stranded Chinese civilians in a war-torn African nation. The 2017 movie was a huge success for China's film industry, making more than $854 million at the domestic box office. Its tagline read, even though 1,000 miles away, anyone who affronts China will pay. And the Wolf Warrior moniker captured the intimidating and sometimes bewildering nature of Chinese diplomacy as seen by the outside world, and it stuck. This post from Zhang is showing his attitude towards Western countries as well as submitting his homework to the Chinese Communist Party. As for the Wolf Warrior, have you ever seen a counsellor posting a middle finger at his official account? This is definitely my first time seeing such an act. Though Zhang's tweet gave a strange reflection to the message given by the Chinese Communist Party's head, Xi Jinping, on May 31st this year, she emphasized the need to strive to create an image of China that is trustworthy, lovable, and respectable. Some Western media misunderstood Xi's words to be a sign that Beijing would soften its rhetoric and stance on the international stage. In fact, Xi argued that the Chinese Communist Party needs to be more effective in promoting its own propaganda and its party image to foreign audiences. Why did I use the word misunderstood? It is because Xi really didn't mean to tell the Chinese diplomats to act like cute puppies in front of those Western countries, and Zhang knows that very well. He knew what she really wanted them to be is being cute puppies in front of their friends and in wolf warrior for their enemies. So who are their enemies? Australia? America? Or all Western countries that are asking questions about China's human rights tyranny or COVID-19 origin? In the past, for the G7 countries, most of them have shown the attitude of anti-communism. In the most recent G7 summit, Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison tabled China's list of grievances against Australia. He asked for a closed G7 session to speak with the leaders, which was an opportunity for Morrison to discuss Australia's experience, that is, the Chinese economic coercion tactics, such as the banning and restricting of key exports, including wine, barley, and coal from Australia. Following the G7 meeting, Morrison told Inquirer, living with China, which is the goal, requires us to be very clear about what our values are and what our principles are, and how our countries are run and how we will continue to run, free of interference. The Inquirer said that G7 leaders, including French President Macron, took the list of China's 14 grievances with Australia back to their cabinets to discuss. It was said that the G7 leaders were shocked and appalled by the list, which was released by the Chinese embassy in Canberra. What are these 14 grievances, you may ask? Keep watching, you'll be shocked too, but just wait for it. In this list of grievances, some are things Australian government did in the past, like banning Huawei, passing foreign interference law, and calling for international independent inquiry into the origin of COVID-19. Some are related to Australia voicing human rights concerns over Xinjiang and Hong Kong too. One thing I found really amusing is that the Chinese Communist Party is quite upset that Australian media reports are too unfriendly or antagonistic towards them. The fact is that the Chinese government was complaining about Australian media to Australian government. That really shows how out of touch the Chinese Communist Party is with the Western world. The Chinese Communist Party thinks that the Aussie government should be able to control the Aussie media, like how the CCP is controlling its own mouthpieces in China. After seeing this list, the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the French President Macron took firm positions on China's treatment of Australia. Macron said he understood Australia was at the forefront of tensions dominated by threats and intimidation. He said, quote, "I want to reiterate how much we stand by your side," end quote. In a speech at an industry event, the president of Federation of German Industries said that, quote, "We must not shy away from confrontation when right lines are crossed. Universal human rights, for example, are not an internal affair," end quote. The declarations of support to Australia, which echo the similar sentiment at the G7 summit, are being backed up by action from France, Britain, and Germany. The three European great powers have committed to send warships, submarines, and aircraft carriers to the South China Sea this year, with Britain and France also ramping up their influence across the South Pacific, where both countries have deep historic roots in the region. As the global focus shifts firmly on the Indo-Pacific, Australia's first sphere of responsibility remains at the South Pacific, a region that China has aggressively pursued via its Belt and Road Initiative and soft power diplomacy, promising to build infrastructures which typically doesn't work or isn't delivered. Johnson and Biden are looking at ways to combat Xi Jinping's BRI, with the G7 backing a green fund building mass renewable projects in developing nations across Asia and Africa. The Biden administration also imposed more trade bans on 5 more Chinese companies over forced labor allegations in Xinjiang. The White House said on June 24, citing the G7's recent pledge to clean up the global supply chain. Now, back to our question. It seems to me that all these countries are standing up to the communist regime, are now treated as enemies by the Chinese Communist Party. Does this mean that the regime is going to need more wolf warriors to start a Twitter war with all these Western countries? And do you think they have a chance of winning? Leave me a comment below. Alright, this is all for today. Thank you for watching Beyond the News. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. I'm Faye. Until next time.